would, if you can. And even done mine. And we've got some guests, so we're welcoming Kirsty Doncaster, who's head teacher at Lonehead Primary School, in respect of the agenda item 3. And we've also got visitors, Louisa Yule, Senior Audit Manager from Audit Scotland. And that's in respect of items 5 and 8. And John McCallum, Senior Manager, Corporate Fraud Team for agenda item 7. Thank you and welcome. Go for Sederant and apologies, please. Lynn.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. If you hear your name, can you confirm your attendance, please? Councillor Mabin.
Present, thank you.
We have an apology this morning from Councillor Cogley. Councillor Richardson.
Present.
Councillor Canning.
Present, thanks.
Councillor Clark.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor McGregor.
Present, thanks.
Councillor Lennox.
Morning, here.
We have an apology this morning from Councillor Crawford. Councillor Kyle.
Present.
Councillor Hogg.
Here, thanks, Lynn.
And Councillor Watts.
I'm hearing.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lynn. We've 10 items in the agenda this morning. We'll move to item 2, which is Standards and Quality Report 23-24 in the Education Service. And that's presented by Linda McCauley-Griffiths. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. Just seem delighted to be here with you this morning to share the Education Service Standard and Quality Report for the academic year 23-24. Members, as you may already know, this is a statutory report that we must submit as an education service to the Scottish Government, alongside that of our Education Service Improvement Plan 24-27, which has actually also just gone through Cabinet recently, and that's in accordance with the Standards in Scotland Schools Act 2000. So, members, in referring to the covering report, clearly the purpose is to provide a summary of achievements in education via the vehicle of our Standards and Quality Report. 2 main recommendations, really, to note the content of the paper itself, members, but also to congratulate our staff and young people on the achievements that you will find enclosed herein. Members, paragraphs 3 to 5 cover the background that I've already mentioned, that this is a statutory report. And in paragraph 6 in the main report, it also gives you an overview of the complete report that you see attached in your papers, members. So, members, in moving you towards the report itself, pages 10 to 14 cover our index and contents, a variety of 4 words, and we'll be adding young people to that next year in accordance with the implementation of the UNCRC, I'm delighted to advise. Members, clear statement around about our vision and values, and also those for the service and those for East Ayrshire Council members. We also enclose for your information, members, the demographic information that's important to us in education and clearly across all of our services. Members, in moving you into the paper further, pages 15 to 17, as many of you will experience in Cabinet, give you an overview of the school estate, works that have been carried out, members, and also works that are still to be programmed but are time dated in said report, members. Pages 18 through 21, members, take you through some of the highlights of the year, but what we've tried to do this year in reformatting those is actually try to put them in the relevant sections rather than having a big brain dump of all of those at the front of the report. So I hope, members, as you go through, you'll see those highlights threaded through the report. Members, I would bring to your attention school leaver attainment in terms of literacy and numeracy. You'll see the progress that we have made at SCQF level 4, and this, members, is the percentage of young people who leave our schools with both, not one or other, both qualifications, literacy and numeracy, at level 4. And you'll see for the 22-23 session, members, and I'll just remind you, we don't get the leavers data until the February, so it'll be February of 25 we get the next iteration of the data, and so that's why this one refers to 22-23. So, members, you'll see our percentage at 91% outstrips our virtual comparator, which is based on young people tenfold, with the same characteristics of SIMD, gender, ASN and free school meals, and you'll see us 5% above where, let's say, the computer says we should be for the virtual comparator. You'll also see members that were trending above the South West Collaborative. That includes North Ayrshire, South Ayrshire, Dumfries and Galloway and ourselves, and also members for almost the first time were trending above the national average, which is absolutely superb considering some of the demographics that we have in our authority. It also represents members our best ever performance in that space. Members in literacy and numeracy at SCQF 5, so thinking about the National 5 qualifications in the main. We've also achieved our best ever performance at 71.75%. And also members, as you'll see from the table, we've exceeded the virtual comparator by a significant percentage. We've also exceeded the South West Collaborative, and we've also exceeded the national, which again, National 5, where those qualifications are examined by exam, again, is really clear in terms of our progress. Members, literacy and numeracy at SCQF level 6 is more difficult as we return to the reset higher post-COVID. Clearly, members, you'll see there's a bit of a drop there right across the piece, both for us, the virtual comparator, the South West Collaborative and national. We have seen a return of the full exam that was sat in June of this year for the first time. So we suspect there's further bumps in the road to come. But please know, members, we believe that by the continuing integration of our South West Connects programme and other areas of development in the senior phase curriculum, that we should see that recover. So clearly, members, that's somewhere we're focusing, but that qualification, if you bear in mind, will be higher maths and higher English, so not all young people will take those particular qualifications, members. Members, in moving you through the rest of the highlights section, you'll see commentary there. And members, I would say some of those performances on page 18 actually put us in the top 10 in Scotland, which is another first for us in East Ayrshire. And I think we should be rightly proud of our young people, their families and our staff in that space. Members, on page 19 for positive destinations, we've seen again some really fantastic results in that particular space. We are above national once more, and we rank again in the highest 10 local authorities in Scotland for that particular percentage. And I'm grateful to you all in the chamber for your ongoing support of employability, particularly aspects such as SL33, the new SL66, which you'll see later in the report, and clearly our new employability hubs in Galston, and also members in and I've lost the place that I was going to be in, Galston, and one other. It'll come back to me. I'll mention that later on, members. I've lost my fourth hub. Members, we continue through the highlights section on page 14. Page 20, 21, you'll see some aspects there about the visit of the Chief Executive, the Interim Chief Exec of Education Scotland, who's an ex-Sturton Academy pupil, back to see us and her former teacher, and also a fantastic water safety day at Lochdoon, which I know many of you have supported in trying to eliminate incidences of drowning and other issues. Members, in moving to section 1, and before I do so, the other hub is in Domellington. Members, in moving to section 1, page 22, we begin to cover attainment and performance in somewhat more detail. So members, on page 22, you'll have the highlights there of the primary school attainment. And again, members, I would draw your attention to some of our best ever results for young people in ACEL, which is achievement of a level data, members, in P147 literacy combined, P147 numeracy combined, and we'd set ourselves a target. We had a real issue with primary 4 writing, members, set ourselves a target there. So those are the stretch aims that we use to help us look at where we're headed, and indeed what the gap is between quintile 5, which represents SIMD 9 and 10, and quintile 1, members, which you'll know represents SIMD 1 and 2. Members, moving on to page 23, we have the senior phase attainment, which I've already discussed at the start of the paper. However, in moving further towards that, we're using a different measure here, and this is the percentage of young people who leave us with at least one qualification, and for the first time ever it hit 97%. So we're absolutely delighted to see that percentage of all of our young people, regardless of background, school, achieve that type of level of accreditation. You'll see there again, we're tracking above the virtual comparator in that space. Members, SCQF level 5, we've also got a slight increase up to 86, again ahead of our virtual comparator. And at SCQF 6 members, as you already have noted, there is a slight slump there, and we're not shying away from this one at SCQF level 6, but I would advise members that a lot of these percentages here are still affected by the COVID years of adapted examination. Members, again, commentary on positive destinations can be found on page 24. Attendance, members, were very clear that this is something we are really struggling with in East Ayrshire Council. We're struggling with it nationally, but we're really struggling with this in East Ayrshire, and it's having a fairly profound impact at this stage on young people in the lowest SIMDs. So what we see, members, is very clear evidence that not only is attendance a problem for us nationally and locally post-COVID, it's also a real problem for our young people who may be from more deprived backgrounds, members. So we've had 2 attendance symposia so far. I know some of you have been at one of those. We've had parents with us, so we're really trying to work in that space, and we discussed it at length with our parent council at their steering group on Tuesday about how we can make this offer even better to young people, and indeed encapsulate in different ways through digital learning where SL33 and 66 offer. What is it that's maybe not school for these young folk, and really try to think outside the box, because I think we're quite clear in East Ayrshire. School can't be a one size fits all. We can't fit the reins into this one set of kind of educational peripheral places, but ultimately we do know we have real success in the likes of SL33, 66 and our employability hubs, and we know we've got incredibly strong business links. And again, members, I thank you for your ongoing sponsorship around about the apprenticeship piece, and we should really look forward to our continued cooperation with colleagues in people and culture and across the services, and looking at the foundation, modern and graduate apprentice programmes, which will be a real good fit for some of our young people to earn as they learn. Members, in going through that data, we now come to exclusions. Members, again, screaming off the page at you. Primary exclusions, you'll see we've tracked those from 2016-17 through to 23-24. Clearly, really pleased to see that decrease continue in the primary sector, but members, it will be clear to you that that decrease is not continuing in the secondary sector. We're dealing with some incredibly dysregulated behaviours in the secondary sector. And clearly, members, I am very clear with my staff through the use of what's known as Standard Circular 8, members, that ultimately where we need to use exclusion, it does have to be used. But clearly, at the antithesis of that is clearly attendance and inclusion. So while we try as hard as we possibly can to make sure our young people can attend or included, there are those times, members, particularly where those acts are criminal, where the young people do need to be advised as to that which is right and that which is wrong. So apologies if that sounds slightly old-fashioned, but again, given some of the challenges the schools face, a lot of the staff and young people sometimes need that time to heal, regroup and plan, and also for the young people concerned in the exclusion, they also need that time to reflect and think about their own futures and how they might best integrate with the fuller school community. Members, you'll also see a slight increase in the special sector. That again is also down to dysregulation, members. So ultimately, I bring that one to you. It is clear Cabinet have already passed my Education Service Improvement Plan for 24 to 27, where we have a real emphasis on inclusion, which is clearly the opposite of exclusion. So we have this as a focus going forward, members, but I don't think it's anything in our standards and quality report that I would seek to be disingenuous about. It's something that is a real issue, both in East Ayrshire and indeed nationally. Members, in proceeding through the rest of the report, page 27 covers a variety of aspects, including literacy, numeracy, pupil equity and strategic equity funding, members. Also covers aspects of leadership on page 28. And again, members, in terms of attainment on page 29, I hope you can see some fantastic stories and pictures about some of our amazing young people and staff and their achievements. Members, in moving to section 2, which is school and centre improvement on page 30, you will see what I hope is a very comprehensive list of schools that we visited in the last academic year. And members, I would advise that the Learning Visits programme is actually attended and contributed to by parents, fellow head teachers, associate assessors. So it's a model that's really moving from strength to strength in this authority in giving us quality assurance data in terms of our schools, and you'll see further narrative on that particular piece on page 31. Members, in moving through the rest of the report, clearly on page 33, we move into to the inspection of early learning and childcare. And in that space, members, on page 33, you'll also note that the ELCs are also audited internally. So outside of external inspection, which I'll speak about further in the report, you'll see there, members, the scope of audits that were carried out by our early years team. Now, we are a small central team in East Ayrshire compared to other authorities, so I hope you would agree that 36 early years audits and indeed 33 learning visits carried out in the space of an academic year really is best placed in terms of what my team have been able to do aside from the other day jobs, members. Members, from page 35 onwards, you'll see the section on improving health and wellbeing, and again I'll just pull out some key aspects in there if I may. So you'll note the work of the early learning and childcare team, our inclusion team members. You'll note the Paths Award. I know many of you have been to schools to see them receive their Paths Award from Twiggle the Turtle. The East Ayrshire support team members, clearly our psychological service team members, who again sadly were on duty in our on-thank ECC yesterday, whereby we lost a member of staff in that fatal car crash near Catrin. So again, they're such a valuable resource to us, not just at those really difficult times, but all through the year, members. And I hope you'll note their successes on page 39 and 40, members. Page 41 and 42, members, highlight the fantastic work of the School Counselling Service. I think this has been one of the most successful initiatives we've seen in our schools, and clearly where there are other blockages in that care system, such as CAMS, this really has been a model for access for our young people. It's there in their doorstep. It's almost instantaneous in terms of seeing a counsellor. And as you can see there, members, 1,204 young people have been supported by this service in that academic year alone, and that undertook 7,140 one-to-one counselling sessions. So I think there's a sadness to it in terms of the need, but there's also much to be pleased about there, members, I hope, in terms of the utilisation of the public pound in terms of providing that service to schools. Members, the last sections in that particular section are around about outdoor learning, and I hope you'll enjoy some of the pictures and narrative in that section. Members, in coming towards the final sections of the Standards and Quality Report on page 45, I bring you the improving employability and skills and sustained positive destinations for all of our young people. And members, in that section, clearly you'll see further around about our positive destinations rate, which we're obviously delighted about. It's an incredibly difficult thing to sustain, but those of you who know the work of Marjorie and the team down at SL33, and now obviously at 66 and the other two hubs, will know that by keeping in constant contact with our young people even through the summer, and that's why we're able to achieve those types of results. Page 46, you'll see further highlights and pictures, and on page 47, some lovely pictures of the inside and external of SL66 up in Netherthurd. And I know it's been a really, really welcome addition to that particular community and to the young people in the environs of Netherthurd and around. Members, page 48 is the section on working with families and communities. And again, members, I'll just pull out a few key issues. I think clearly we would all identify across services the impact of our financial inclusion officers in our schools, the ongoing commitment to the Promise members through the Care Experience funding, our early years community practitioners who are literally out there in the field working with our youngest young people and their families, our family engagement programmes members, our wonderful childminders, and our equity and excellence leads. So I hope you enjoy or have enjoyed reading through that section. Members, it's quite amazing as time goes on to see certain sections of these reports grow, and this is one of them. Section 6 on digital transformation and sustainability. I don't think there's any surprise that this section seems to be growing at pace, and I've no doubt will continue to grow. Members, delighted to report again the success of our online learning platform, South West Connects. We've achieved another great set of higher and advanced higher results in that virtual space, where our young people and staff are contributing to the learning right across the 4 councils in the Regional Improvement Collaborative. So in 23-24, 106 young people accessed hires or advanced hires they just would not have been able to do otherwise. And for schools the likes of Doon, where that staffing is small, and indeed the aspects of rurality that sit around some of our schools members, as you will all know, this is absolutely invaluable. So we look forward to that continuing. The RICs do come to an end in March. But I've been in the rooms with the chief executives of all of the councils seeking their support going forward for what is a highly successful initiative, members. Members, you'll also note that Catrin, ECC, who've got more front than Marks and Spencers, decided to apply for a Digital Schools Award, even though they weren't allowed to, because they were an ECC, and lo and behold, they changed history in Scotland because they got it. So ultimately, having applied to do this as an early childhood centre, Digital Schools Scotland then opened up the award to early childhood centres, with Catrin being the first one to get it. So fair play to Judith and the team down there. They did a sterling job of just putting the application in and seeing what they got. So absolutely delighted for them as a national first in East Ayrshire. Members, in terms of sustainability and climate change, I know many of you attended the climate conference with me just last week, I think it was. Trying to reflect, I think it was. And clearly you can see the work ongoing there, members, in respect of sustainability and climate change, which just seems to go from strength to strength. Members, you'll note the previous active travel initiative in terms of Journey to Jupiter. For those of you that weren't able to attend the climate conference, that is now rebadged as Shoot to Saturn and has actually already launched, if you'll pardon the pun. You'll also see there, members, pictures of Windy, the windmill mascot, our Power Down programme, food waste and litter, clearly visits. So again, really grateful to the other services for bringing the recycling teams to schools and letting them see how this all works. And the young people really are pioneers in this field and really showing us, I think, members, how this should be done. You'll see also, members, the launch of Harriet the Hedgehog Needs Help, and also some features there at Annenhill. Members, in page 58, moving more into the digital aspect, we've had several huge STEM and robotics events, and clearly many of you will have had the opportunity to visit these events. And also the young people have loved having Pepper the robot, who I believe came from the robotics centre, down to see them. You'll also note, members, again, as a first, that Kilmarnock Academy, first school in East Ayrshire, to win the STEM Nation Award from Education Scotland in recognition of their work in STEM. Members, that section 7 is simply my own closing remarks and an invite for commentary from the general public in terms of this. The document was passed at Cabinet and at CPP previously, and clearly I've brought it to you today in terms of the scrutiny aspect, with this being a statutory report. Members, in moving back to the main report this morning, at the end of that fuller document, members, I take you back to paragraph 9 through 11, which covers the aspect of external school inspections, members. So in terms of school inspection, members, in 23-24, inspections took place at Doon Academy, Nether Robertland Primary, Annenhill Primary, Lonehead Primary and Little Mill Primary. Apologies for the misprint there, members. Inspection reports for all of the academies have been presented, for all of those have been presented to Governance and Scrutiny, aside from Lonehead, which is featured today, and Little Mill, which was not available in publication at the time of coming to meeting, Chair, as you've already been advised. So, members, we wanted to highlight the school inspections piece because it's hard to bring that up to date in such a document, and we wanted to be clear on that, which has been completed in the last academic year, members. Members, the last paragraph, paragraph 12, covers implications, and Chair, thank you for your time in bringing this report to you this morning, and members, happy to take any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Linda, for that report. Very comprehensive. Before we take questions, can I ask elected members in the room, if you're doing questions, can you refer to the page and the paragraph so we can all follow where your question's coming from? Also, I got a bit excited earlier and I missed out the very first item in the agenda, which is declarations of interest. So if anyone's any declarations of interest in the room,
No.
you let us know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I can tick off item 1. And we'll go to questions. Councillor Hogg is online first, and then I'll go to Councillor McGregor. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. It's not so much a question, it's just an observation, Linda. Overall, I think this paper is showing that a year-on-year improvement, post-COVID especially, I would say. So a big thank you to all our staff. This is a welcome report, and it shows we're working with our youngsters and really helping them attain and achieve to the best of their abilities. On a personal note, I attended last night Doon Academy's prize giving, and as you know, they didn't have the best of terms of inspectors' reports earlier this year. But last night absolutely demonstrated that through our good leadership, an environment that I would say is nurturing and caring for the kids and our youngsters, and one that I see has integrated our families and communities. We can see that the youngsters definitely flourish. In every aspect at that school last night, we saw an overall improvement in their attainment, which was great to see. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone involved, and for this report as well, Linda. It is really quite heartening to see the improvements that are happening in our schools.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. Linda, do you want to come back on that?
No, thanks so much, Councillor Hogg, and I will be making sure to pass back to the teams, and I would share your comments on Doon last night. It was a wonderful, inclusive event, and you could really sense how well the school are moving on from that inspection piece. Really quite phenomenal. Thanks so much, Councillor Hogg. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Linda. Councillor McGregor, and then Councillor Canning and Councillor Lennox.
Thanks very much, Chair. Linda, thanks very much for presenting the report. I appreciate the last 24 hours will have been particularly challenging, so thanks for that. It was just with regards to page 16 of the papers, or 10 of the report, just to ask how confident we are that the St Sophia's refurbishment is still on schedule for the completion date, and just to ask if there's been any feedback collected from the pupils and the staff about how the decant is going at Kirkstyle. Thank you.
Okay, caught me off guard with that one, Councillor McGregor, but I'll certainly do my best. So we're on track at the moment in that particular space. This is where I'm scanning the room, just checking Andrew Kennedy's not here to bail me out, but he's not. So ultimately we are on track. The young people have been down for a wee visit as well, which is really good. And again, you'll know we've got a shared headship in there following the retirement of Lizzie Herring at the summer. So the lovely Amanda Rooney is looking after both St Saviour's and St Sophia's. I'm actually heading to Kirkstyle this morning, as it happens, after this meeting, Councillor McGregor, so I'll get some first-hand information, because as you know, in East Ayrshire, our Wains are no shy at coming forward and telling us if they're not happy with something, but also when they are happy with something. So again, we actually find it hard sometimes to get the young people back out of Kirkstyle. They really like it. So ultimately, they're doing great down there at the moment, and they'll clearly be really looking forward to getting back into their new space. But the contractors that we've got working with us on St Sophia's have been great in terms of being able to facilitate wee touch base visits so the young people can see what's going on. Because again, members, just for information, this is the first ENERFIT school in Scotland that we're building here in East Ayrshire, or recovering, shall we say, remoulding, reshaping, because it's not a knockdown start again. So I hope that kind of answers the question, Councillor McGregor. We seem to be on track, but we never know what will befall us come the winter in terms of these matters. So I certainly don't want to promise anything, but fingers crossed things keep going as they do.
Okay, Councillor McGregor. Thank you,
Yeah,
Linda,
thank
for the reply. Councillor Canning, and then Councillor Lennox. Thank you.
Thanks for that report, Linda. Can take members to page 26 on exclusions. Obviously, you made the comment that the primary exclusions appears great that it's reduced significantly, but I mean, is that a change in policy, or is it a change in behaviour? Because obviously, if it's just the fact that we're keeping disruptive pupils in the class and not, well, we don't it's a last resort, we don't want to be excluding kids, clearly, but also we don't want to be keeping kids in the class that's disrupting behaviour, making it difficult for the other kids. So just a question. Another one, I'll come back to that.
No, thanks, Councillor Cannon. I think for complete transparency, I've got the absolute joy of having a fantastic primary head in the room, and there's absolutely no change to policy in that space at all, Councillor Canning. The place I will say there was a significant change to policy was back in 17-18 when I first came into post, and the exclusions were completely unacceptable in my mind when I came to post. So if you look back there, I will be clear that there was a step change in how we looked at exclusion, but we have never gone back out to reiterate that and say you can't exclude, indeed, if anything, because of the level and some of the types of dysregulation we've had to deal with. I think I've been really clear with heads that if that's something you need to do, you need to do it. So I'm absolutely clear, and I'm even happy if Kirsty wants to come in that space, Councillor Canning, given the opportunity that I've got of having one of them live in the room today. No policy change. Yes, we're talking about inclusion. Yes, we're talking about relational practice. Yes, we're talking about trauma-informed practice, absolutely. But if my heads need to use that tool of exclusion, that tool's absolutely out there for them. And as you'll see from the secondary statistics, which, you know, I'm looking at, I'm certainly not going to turn around and say I'm happy with, but at the same time, often when we get a new head arriving in a school or a new school being set up as well, you will see a slight increase in those figures as that head teacher makes his mark in terms of laying down some pretty firm lines in terms of what's acceptable in a school community and that which isn't. So I hope that's helpful. No policy change at all. Kirsty, I don't know if you want to come in to reiterate that or whether or not.
Just to concur with you, Linda. No change. Linda's very supportive. If it's required, it's required. It's very, the heads teachers are very much empowered to make those decisions with the team.
Thanks. Yeah. Just one more question.
Okay.
Page 27, People Equity Fund. I mean, just obviously sharing best practice and all that is good, but I just want to make sure, my understanding was that obviously closing the attainment gap, it was designed to give the head teachers, you know, authority to spend where they see specific need. There's no risk here that it's replacing core funding through the process. I mean, it's just a question. I'm not saying.
No, and again, through you, Chair, it's a great question, Councillor Canning. So no, absolutely not. The PEF goes to the schools and the schools have absolute autonomy over how they spend that. And again, it should be a joint decision that's made with the young people, with the parents and indeed the wider community where that practice is exceptional. And you're actually thinking not just inside the body of the school, but actually what does this look like in terms of the school as the centre of the community? Because it's the one thing that I'm always clear about. In every community in East Ayrshire, we've pretty much got a school. So while there might not be X, Y and Z, there's usually definitely a school or an ECC that we can use as a focal point for that community. So no, it's theirs to spend, Councillor Canning.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cannon, for the question, and Linda for the reply. Councillor Lennox and then Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a question as such. It was just to congratulate Linda and the Education Services team on such a excellent and well presented report. Thank you for that. I think it's very pleasing to see some of the results that you're getting in literacy and numeracy and positive destinations. Having a family member who works in education, not in this authority right enough, but elsewhere, I think some of the challenges that teachers face nowadays is overwhelming for some of them. And I think at times you would need a degree in social work, not just a teaching degree. So well done on those positive results. You mentioned in your introduction an incident that took place in Ward 7. I don't think there's much information in the public domain at this point in time, but I'd just like to offer my own sincere condolences to the family and colleagues of those affected by that incident. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennox, and I'm sure we all concur there's the families and our thoughts at this time. I'm sure when we get to full council, there'll be a minute's silence in respect to that. Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, following on from the comments there from both of you, I think everybody in East Ayrshire Council is thinking about the family and friends of the two people that were caught up in the accident. And also, I know that East Ayrshire, and I know Linda, you were up at the One Thank ECC yesterday, along with other senior officers, and I know that we'll do everything we can to support the kids, etc., up there and the other staff. Yeah, we're thinking about them. Linda, to come to my question, it's on attendance, page 25. There does seem to be a gradual sort of increase in non-attendance, if you like, over the years, both in the primary and secondary sector. could you give us just a wee summary of what, say, a typical primary school is doing currently to sort of try and turn that round the other way? What are we doing to try and get the kids into school in the morning?
Oh my goodness, thank you very much for the question again through you, Chair, Councillor Richardson. So it's, you know, everyone will be doing something different. And, you know, again, I think there's something about how your school day starts. And for a lot of those schools, that's a breakfast club. It's a bit of toast and a cup of tea, if I'm being rather crude about it. And it's somebody at the gate that knows and loves the way as they're dropped off. So there's something about those routines where the young people feel welcome. And I'd like to think that that's the case in every single one of the primary schools, that as they come in, it's that same thing you'd see, that I witnessed myself working at the door of On Thank ECC yesterday, you know, about that drop off and passing their young people over to us and putting them into our loving care. So I suppose there's a lot of things here. There are huge aspects, Councillor Richardson, that are COVID linked, and there are also issues that aren't. Okay, so I think societally, there's become a bit more acceptance about, oh, I'm not feeling well, I'm not going to school, whereas probably for a lot of us in the chamber, and I'm not looking in any directions, it was, you know, you're gone. Whereas now, I think that's become slightly more difficult, and, you know, potentially when it was COVID and a lot of these things were a risk to others and other public health issues, there's a lot of fear out there. So there's a lot of anxiety and mental health in this space that I think's at play here as well. But I think in terms of the primary schools themselves, I think it's the welcome, the relational practice that they all engage in. I think they all want to offer that really exciting and dynamic curriculum for kids to want to come to something. That offer needs to be good, you know, in terms of what they're actually taking part in within the classroom. So that curriculum, those expectations, that feeling of belonging, and sense of belonging, whether you've come in from a children's house that morning, or you've come in from foster care or a kinship care, or my God, you've just come in and you're a young carer and you've just dropped your wee sister or brother at school before you get to school. So I think it's that piece about the primary schools and the secondaries, if I'll be dead honest, and my ASN sector. They really know the kids and they love the Wains. And I think it's that bit, we know if we can get the kids to attend, they'll do really well. Now, if you think about, and again, I'm so grateful for the positive comments this morning, if you think about the issues around about the attainment and how well we're doing, you can only imagine how good it would be if they were all coming to school more of the time. So there's that frustration in here of going, my goodness, we've made the top 10 in Scotland in the measures, and that's where the Wains attending at some of the percentages you see here. We do also see real aspects of the cost of living creeping in here as well, and family holidays members. I'll be very honest with that. We see significant incidents now of family holidays where families have the choice whether or not they'll be able to take their Wains on a holiday because of the prices that kick in at summer or kick in at October, and we've all seen it. I'm preaching to converted in the chamber, and, you know, again, it's that choice a family have over whether they get a family holiday that year or not. So there's some really difficult and wicked issues in there around about that. There's definitely much more mental health there as well, and there's definitely much more difficulty for some parents. So the other pieces of support we've got there clearly are all the financial inclusion, the grants, the free school meals that members in this chamber agreed to. You know, clearly there's all of those aspects that are built into enabling a child to come to school. But for some of our young people, it's become incredibly difficult. And I think we will see, we've now got our first digital provision in terms of some young people that we just cannot get to school. So we've got our first digital teachers onboarded, working as we speak in those spaces to try and engage young people in whatever way so we can get them back. We're great believers, if we can see the whites of their eyes, we can support them, but that's difficult when they're in bed or they're somewhere else. And there's been a slight increase, I think, nationally on home education as well. So I've maybe not answered the question you asked me, but I've maybe gone round the houses on that, Councillor Richardson, so I'm happy if you need to come back in. Through you, Chair, apologies.
No, no need for any apologies, Linda. That was a good answer. I mean, I've seen it myself. Of you know, On Thank Parent Council, speaking to the management team at On Thank and the parents and some of the staff that unheard of in my day, but they actually go out into the community in the morning. The kiddies that haven't reported for school, and it's maybe like the Pied Piper. They're out chapping doors and bringing a wee train of kiddies and high vis into school. You know, so we're actually going out there, chapping the doors and bringing them in, which is great. But I'm like you. I don't have all the answers, but it would be good to see those figures reverse and come back the way, wouldn't it? No, thanks for your answer.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson and Linda. It's before we go to Councillor Watts online, I have my own comments on the same subject. I was just wondering if you've got a system to record absence, so probably to Linda, Graham, Kirsty as well. Does that? I expect there is a system. You record it. How does that system? Does it show any patterns? Is it higher on a Friday or a Monday for reasons, and then what you're doing to try and reverse it? Do you have targets to try and get absence down? Is there a target for each school, Kirsty, for example? Thank you.
Thanks for that question, Chair. So yeah, we've got a system for the recording of absence. We use CMIS for that. So there's codes that are used in terms of how schools code a young person as not being there. And then clearly there's follow up, and Councillor Richardson, you've just described some of that stuff as well. There are things like the walk-in buses and things like that to take the Pied Piper struck a chord. It looks exactly like that when you see it in action. We do see patterns, Councillor Maybin, there's no doubt about it, Mondays and Fridays, in terms of some of the attendance of the young people. And clearly it's just reiterating the whole time that to parents and young people that attendance is really important. It's part of your, bigger education piece, and it's also the bit about making sure some young people don't go into adulthood socially isolated because they've not been to school, etc. So yeah, we do see patterns. We do also have targets, so they're expressed to the Scottish Government as stretch aims. Graham can tell you much more about them, but they're expressed and they are one of our core targets, Graham, in terms of, so we have to submit to Scottish Government, again, in terms of, get far too many audit colleagues in the room today, I'm speaking all that stuff, but we have to submit those stretch aims to Scottish Government for their awareness in terms of what we are currently working to. So yeah, we do have targets for attendance in those spaces.
Thank you. Graham or Kirsty, do you want in on this?
Thanks, Chair. Not a lot more to add in terms of what Linda's already said, but just to say that we do track that essentially in terms of attendance overall across the local authority. On a monthly basis, we produce reports and we're able to see what attendance looks like overall and by individual school. At school level, and Kirsty will be able to say a wee bit more about this, but at school level there is also that level of tracking going on. And I think the importance here, and Linda's already touched on it, is the relationship with families to encourage children to come to school, and where there's a challenge, working with parents to encourage the children to come to school. Like Linda said, the curriculum's a big feature. Making an attractive curriculum for children to want to come to school is definitely a big factor in increasing attendance. But that's what I'll add to what Linda's already added, and I'll pass on to Kirsty in case she's anything else she wants to add.
Thanks, Chair. Certainly at school level, relationships are key. We have to have adults who trust us with their children. And as Linda mentioned, we're in the playground in the morning. We have a Toast to Go initiative at Lonehead Primary. We're in the playground if parents want to approach us with things. But when they come into school, it's really important as well when we look at our office staff. So our office staff quite often are the first people that parents, carers would speak to in terms of absence. So we would monitor that and record that. And then we have regular meetings with office staff and senior leadership team, and we talk to staff as well as those wee conversations in the lunch hall that I have on a daily basis with children if they've been off. So I think the key thing is around relationships, but as part of our quality assurance processes in school, attendance is certainly one thing that we monitor regularly.
Thank you very much. I know my own experience when I went to James Hamilton Academy. If it was a double period of maths, there was always people missing. So I can understand what you're saying about the curriculum being attractive. We'll go to Councillor Watts online, please, and then Councillor Canning.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Linda, can I thank you very much for this excellent report. I think it certainly shows as an area that we're doing really quite well in most areas. I can also confer, I was with you at the Children and Young Persons Climate event last week at St Joseph's. And that was an extremely inspiring event, and it was really good to see how excited all of the young pupils were getting over what we can do to help the climate and move forward. Looking at page 42 of the report, it's excellent to see the school counselling service that we put into place. With the long waits on CAMS, I think this is really, really important. And it's interesting to see that it's really S3 that's the largest cohort that's sort of being needed to be looked at, with around anxiety and the way that they're having to deal with the ability to cope with problems. Do you feel, Linda, that looking at the age group and looking at the issues, that the period of time when we had COVID and we closed the schools and children were at home, that actually that's probably one of the biggest issues with these children having difficulties within these areas? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair, and I'll ignore the double maths period comment there as a maths teacher myself to trade, but we'll leave that one there. Thanks, Chair. No, going back to you, Councillor Watts, I would say actually S3, as a previous head teacher myself in a secondary school, S3 is one of the classic areas that we would have generally seen young people with difficulty. It's a classic tweenie year in terms of moving between the broad general education and going into senior phase. So in an academic sense, they're in this kind of no man's land between, you know, fulfilment of the BGE and about to take options. But actually, in terms of chronological age, they're in exactly the same space in terms of their teenage years. So it's always a difficult space, this one. And it's a really difficult one, generally speaking, for girls at S3 and boys at S2. So ultimately, you could almost track it. And it's, believe it or not, it's the same in England and Wales. Year 8 and the year 8 and year 9 phenomena, we used to call it down there. So it's absolutely classic. It's as the young people move through and they're trying to get that sense of identity, even just between that movement from being a child to a young adult. But they're also experiencing that bit at school. They'll be having that fun at home with their parents as well, where they'll be pushing the boundaries. So ultimately, and then there's a bit about friendships, you know, and potentially relationships as well. So literally it comes at them like an absolute rocket, Councillor Watts. So that is, and you'll also see that phenomena play out, members, if we were to give you more detailed figures on exclusion. You'll also see that in there. So actually, we get kind of double bubble for that one in terms of both the dysregulated behaviours, but also the joy, and I'm going to call it the joy, of having that counselling service on site, because you're absolutely right, Councillor Watts, it's been an absolute game changer. I'm not quite sure where we'd be without it. I'll be really, really honest, because it's very difficult in the other services right now in terms of that provision. So we're really clear that this is one of these things that has been an absolute godsend to schools in that particular regard. So, yep, you're absolutely right to highlight the year group, but it's the perfect storm of issues for the young people between sort of, you know, puberty, where they are as young folk, and even academically. They're kind of all struggling with where they are and who they are at that space.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. I've Councillor Canning and then Councillor Richardson. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I think I maybe forgot to say thanks for the report at the start of my previous comments. It's just, and it's maybe not directly related to performance, but obviously we had significant challenges with staffing at ECC last year, and obviously we're heading into winter, but I think we're well there already. You know, can you reassure parents that what you've done and what you plan to do in terms of making sure, because obviously a lot of it was last minute and stuff, and it's obviously what it will be worrying parents, I think, as we're moving into winter. Thanks.
Okay, through you, Chair, and I've got at my right hand the head of people and culture, and I know I've got Joe online as well. So I can't sit here and give any concrete assurance around about the ECC piece, Councillor Cannon. I wouldn't be as disingenuous as to even attempt to do so, because clearly the issue of providing staffing is intrinsically linked to finance and a workforce being available to us. So ultimately, whilst last year we did see several days of closure, which have been again reported to members, what we are doing proactively in the space, however, and it will be with members, I think, on the 23rd of October, is a full best value service review in early years. As you know, as a service, Councillor Canning, we are overspent. Projections at the minute that Joe has already brought to this chamber indicate as in a significant overspend. So whilst we clearly have duty around about the 1140, which we need to stick to as much as we can, I can't say hand on heart that there won't be more issues to come in this space, but what we'll try and do is mitigate and minimise those. That's the best assurance I could probably give in terms of my own professional response. So we'll do our utmost. I mean, like yesterday, we were down significant numbers of staff up at OnThank. Again, not wishing to rehearse that issue, but we were able to mobilise people. So where we can do these things, we absolutely will, but there do come times where such movements become limited due to availability or fiscal arrangements around about staff. So we'll do our very, very best, is what I can tell you, Councillor Canning, as always. And if we can mitigate those issues, we absolutely will, but I can't guarantee against them.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thanks. Should say I'm with Linda on maths, by the way.
Thank you, Councillor Canning, and thank you, Linda. On the psychological service, how big's that team?
I think at the moment, so we've just had our principal educational psychologist just left us a few weeks ago, off to retrain in early years. So we now have someone acting with us. So I think it's about 9.6 FTE at current rates. So it's around about 9 or 10.
Thank you very much. Can you please pass on our thanks to them? It's very tough work they've got, especially today on time.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Richardson now. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Now, Linda, bearing in mind that my school days ended some 37 years ago, but I just a wee comment about or maybe a question as well, about the S2 and S3 thing. I mean, what I remember is, I'm not going to touch on the puberty side of things, I'm going to leave that well alone. But it's more academic. I remember first and second year being a bit of a breeze. But there wasn't much step up for primary 7. You went up to secondary school and it was the sort of general subjects, you know, the sciences and all of that, and arithmetic and what have you. And it was just easy peasy. But then what happened was, third year happens and you pick your subjects and suddenly you're studying for, well, back in the day it was O grades. And all of a sudden, it really revs up 2 or 3 gears. And my question is, does that still happen in secondary schools, or are we better at? My hunch is it does still happen, and that's maybe adding to these big spikes. But are we better at maybe not having the big changing gears at the start of third year, and school really starting, but maybe from first year onwards making the increase in pressure on the academic side a wee bit more gradual? Do you know where I'm coming from in that?
Yeah, through you, Chair, I remember it well myself as an O grade participant. So ultimately, the good news in the space is that clearly that's been reformed into a broad general education, which starts as soon as the young people enter primary school and runs all the way up to S3 now. So the young people, in terms of picking subjects, would generally be doing that at the end of S3 now, and they pick those up into S4, 5 and 6. So there's a different line in the space, but ultimately as well, the broad general could be perceived to be quite long in that space. So what we do have are really good tracking systems now and work planners across primary, and then also the information going to secondary is much more robust than it used to be, in terms of probably what our own experiences were of that transfer of information to work out, who you were, what your aptitudes were, what your likes and dislikes were, the kind of whole pupil profile type aspect. So actually a lot of that's a lot better. So the idea in the broad general now is to give you enough space and time to study the subjects at breadth and depth that then let you go in. Now, some of our schools actually do start awards in third year. I don't, hide from that fact. Some of them actually do start in third year, but certify in fourth. So ultimately, we use a lot of third year as that kind of gearing up towards fourth, fifth and sixth, where they would take them that 4s, 5s and higher, etc. So while I think there's still work to be done nationally on the BGE, I'll put that one out there, and I think there's work to be done nationally on the senior phase that actually would also answer, I think, some of the issues around about attendance. Councillor Richardson, that's obviously for another day, around about education reform, but I do think now that the staff out in schools have got a much better bearing on the needs and the wants of the young people leaving primary, given the excellent information that secondaries get from primary colleagues, and also able to design that curriculum around the young folk so that it's meaningful and relevant in accordance with the kind of principles of curriculum design. So I think good news is it's changed, but probably I think every young person will still find there's a wee bump in the road. You can't turn around and say there won't be any bumps in the road, especially when you get into great big schools, etc., and young people are all, you know, meeting themselves, getting to know their teachers, etc. So some of that does take time. I would recognise that.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson and Linda, for the response. If there's no other questions in the room, I'll have a wee go myself. Page 14 of the report, looking at the pupil school roll, 16,143. Is the primary school rolls going up or going down? Are secondary school rolls going up or going down? Do we have primary schools without a P1 class registered?
Okay, I'll take the do we have primary schools without a P1 registered? Yes, we have, but they're exceptionally small schools. So I think the best example I can give you of that is St Saviour's, who don't have a P1 intake this year. So we do have some schools, the likes of Sorn is very small. So where we have those really small schools, Councillor Maben, we can have years where we don't have a P1 intake, but then weirdly enough, we can get an intake that's 7. In some of those small schools. I think actually, if I'm right, there's a forecast coming through for St Saviour's that's expecting something like that just about to happen. So in terms of the birth rates, I won't go into the linkage between that and COVID because that will begin to play out for primaries shortly in terms of that particular space. So in terms of the primary school and secondary school roles, we keep them in terms of data compendium. What we find at the minute is some of the year groups in secondary are huge, and some of them are not. So likes of second year in Kilmarnock just now is absolutely bursting at the seams. So we might see the roles change, but actually the phenomena that we see are better commented on in terms of actual year groups. So second year just now is absolutely thronging in the secondary sector. Graham is frantically typing away here, get me an answer in the primary space. It's difficult because, again, we'll see some schools growing and we'll also see some schools declining. Clearly around the Kilmarnock area with significant house build. In other areas, we are seeing some increase, but it varies across the piece, Councillor Maben.
Thank you. What you're saying, some of the, I mean, a little school, it's on or St Saviour's. How does that affect the staff, the pupils, their education when there's not a P1 coming in?
So that they're taught in composite classes in those smaller areas anyway, Councillor Maben. So if there's not a P1 and it's a P1 to 4 class, it's just basically the same class dynamic, but obviously without the young people in P1 actually physically there. And that phenomena will obviously carry through because when they become P2, there might be primary ones there, but no P2. So they're generally in composite classes. It won't be the case that there's a redundant class or a teacher without any kind of young people there. But yeah, we do have the odd case. I think it was St Saviour's this year that was that. Graham is giving me some figures as we type here just now. So ultimately, Councillor, maybe we're sitting just now at 8737. Yeah, across the piece live at this point in time.
I've got a note here telling me to go to page 18 and I forget the question I was going to ask. Yeah, I think you answered it already earlier. It was the literacy numeracy, the SQF 6. I think you mentioned it earlier because the numbers are going down from 2017 that it's dropped, but it's dropped in the virtual comparator as well and the Southwest, and it's dropped as a national thing. Any comment on that? I forget what you said earlier, sorry.
Yeah, we're still seeing the effects of the kind of COVID piece coming through as well, Councillor Maben. You can see For example, you know, in 2019-20, 24, we actually had a wee period of growth, and then obviously we had periods of alternative certification. So the year where, you know, clearly remember the year where the computer picked the grades, and then the year where we had some teacher judgment in terms of all of that. So believe it or not, this year was the first year of return to a full hire. So it's been subject to severe fluctuation in the space. But again, I think with South West Connects and getting our young folk that are not able to study, bigger groups of hires into that digital space, because that's how they're going to learn mainly at college and universities in that digital space. So we feel it's a great piece to help them get ready for what to expect at uni, college, or probably for some even in the workplace.
Thank you very much. Page 21 is about the water safety. Can I ask which schools are involved in that? Is it mainly the schools in the Doon Valley? Or are we doing, does the whole East Ayrshire go into this water safety stuff?
We tend to focus it in the Doon Valley because of the incidence of drowning, Councillor Mabin, but and again, it's that bit about getting the young people pre-summer. So it's actually, I think, David Doran, etc., and his team that organise all of that. So again, we invite all of the local primary schools and the secondary school along to that. But again, water safety is a feature generally in a lot of the schools where there's sort of swimming, etc. But because of the proximity of these schools to Lochdoon, we do make a kind of special case around about that because of the previous statistics and incidences of young people drowning up there.
Thank you very much. I'll speak to David Ons later. I'm just wary that we've got water and rivers and ponds and various other areas, certainly in Kilmarnock and Cape Park Pond, and the water safety would be quite valuable in all of our schools if it's possible to roll that out. Yeah, Councillor Richardson.
No, it's just coming in the water safety, Chair. Thanks for letting me in. Just because of an inquiry I got from the Onthank Parent Council very, very recently, and I've put them in touch with the Galway Centre because Onthank are looking to take, I think, P5. I think they do P5 every year. They're looking to take them down to the Galway for a block of swimming lessons, Linda. Now, you know what I'm going to ask. I think the quote from the Galway Centre was something like £900 for the lessons, and the school themselves are trying to finance the transport. And I know that education's in a really tough place with budget, etc. But if a primary school was wanting to take the 1 year group down to the Galway Centre for water safety or swimming lessons, would there be any chance, any financial help through the education budget just now?
I'll just need to be frank, Councillor Richardson. I mean, parent councils can fundraise in that space. They can use pupil equity funding in that particular space, etc. It's really an individual school decision. There are some lessons that have been funded, you know, previously, but as I say, in current circumstances, it's one of those things we would love to be doing more of, but we need to draw the line in the sand somewhere.
Thanks for that answer, Linda. I sort of knew that would be the answer. So, not, yeah, understandable.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Thank you, Linda. I don't think there's any more questions. And just before we close, there's various things that caught my eye that are very good in this report. Page 29, Abby McClellan, Probationer of the Year, fantastic. One pupil saying Miss McClellan's so positive, she makes all learning fun. On the same page about the Grange, the maths camp, big improvements there and their final results for those that attend. And they've got more going to advanced higher, and Stuart Academy doing very well. Religious, moral, philosophical studies, all great stuff. Page 49 is about the financial inclusion. Again, brilliant work. It's the financial inclusion is going to end, and I believe that the people that were doing this service are going to become they'll go into different departments in the council. But thank you very much to that team who are based in the schools. They've done some brilliant work there. And page 58, also highlighted, was the STEM robotics events, and Kilmarnock Academy getting recognition at a national level. Fantastic STEM Nation Award from Education Scotland. All great things. There's so much positive stuff in the education report, and thanks for presenting it to us, Linda. Thank you. We will now move on to item 3 in the agenda, which is Lonehead Primary School and Early Childhood Centre HMIE inspection report. And that's presented by Graham McGann.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members. The purpose of the report is to present the findings of a report by Education Scotland HMIE inspectors following the inspection of Lonehead Primary School and Early Childhood Centre. The recommendations are detailed in paragraph 2. The aims of inspection are detailed in paragraphs 3 to 8, and I would like to draw members' attention to the inspection at Lonehead being a full inspection, where 4 quality indicators were evaluated, and paragraph 8 in the report shows the QIs, the quality indicators, in the full inspection. Details of the inspection process are provided in paragraphs 9 to 12, and these paragraphs explain who's involved in inspections, lesson observations that take place, and the range of stakeholders that inspectors meet with to gather their views about the school. Paragraph 13 explains that in some inspections, Care Inspectorate inspectors also join the inspection, although this was not the case at Lonehead because there had been a fairly recent early years inspection at Lonehead. Therefore, there wasn't a duplication in this inspection. Paragraphs 14 to 17 provide details about the Education Service programme of school quality improvement visits, and members will note from the details provided in paragraph 14 that these visits are thorough, challenging and supportive. Head teachers from other schools, and more recently deputy head teachers from other schools, are involved in the visits as part of the visiting team. This is leading to sharing of effective practice across schools, as well as building connections across schools. Paragraphs 18 to 24 provide details of 2 quality improvement visits that took place at Lonehead Primary, the first in March 2023 and the second in March 2024. The first visit in March 23 identified strengths as detailed in paragraph 19 and areas for improvement as detailed in paragraph 20. Follow-up visit took place in March 24 as detailed in paragraph 24, and at this point the new head teacher, Kirsty, had only recently taken up post. It's important to note at the time of the second visit, the new head teacher was progressing the areas for improvement, even though she had only been in post for a short period of time. Paragraphs 25 to 29 provide details of the HMI inspection, and I would like to draw members' attention to paragraph 27, and that's the impact that was recognised by inspectors that Kirsty was having, even at an early point when she had been in the school only a matter of weeks. Paragraphs 30 to 33 provide details of the response to the inspection, including the development of a school improvement plan, which focuses directly on the areas identified for improvement from the inspection. And the quality improvement team also continues to engage with the school to support improvement, and there are planned reviews and a further 3-day quality improvement visit for February, and they are detailed in paragraphs 32 and 33. So as a fairly detailed report, the school improvement plan is included as an appendix. I'll stop at that, and I'm happy to take any questions from members.
Thank you, Graham. And we'll open it up to the room if there are any questions. No questions online? We've got to have some questions. Kirsty's here as a special guest. Okay, Councillor Richardson, okay.
Thanks, Chair. Just because we've got to have some questions. I mean, my 4 kids went through Lonehead Primary School, and that was, a fair amount of time ago. The eldest one probably 20 years. So I was quite surprised to see that the report was a relatively negative report, because in those days, I've got to say, Lonehead Primary School was a top primary. I mean, it was just great place for young kids to go for their early stage of their education. I did notice that there's been maybe a change at the top, a change at the management structure at the school. So my question really is, did that have a an impact on the report? Did that have a serious impact on the report? The fact that one head was maybe, how can I put this, heading towards retirement, etc. So that's really the question.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I think rather than reflecting on what went on before, I think what I would draw attention to is what I'd mentioned in the report was the impact that the new head teacher was having, and the inspectors absolutely identified that. They said, and to quote the report, it says the new head teacher has a clear vision for the future success of the school and is providing strong foundation for improvement and change. And inspectors did recognise that. I recognise that in the work with Kirsty, and that work will be ongoing. It's not going to happen overnight. It will take some time to implement the change that's required. But I suppose what I do have is confidence in Kirsty to lead that change in the school, and we're already seeing improvements.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Kirsty, I'm going to go to you and I'm going to ask you to just set out your perspective on the problems that were identified in the past and the actions you've been working on and how you're moving the thing ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to give a sort of rough summary of context, excuse my voice today, I'm rather croaky. We currently have a roll at Loanhead of around 280 children. ASM percentage sits just around 29%, with free school meals sitting at 18% and 24% of children residing in SIMD 1 and 2. Our attendance on average is around 92%. I'm currently supported in the school with an acting DHT at the moment and an acting principal teacher. So when I started in January, I very quickly identified a number of areas that needed improvement at Loanhead Primary. The kind of broad overviews of those were around ESN and inclusion, teaching, learning and assessment, the quality assurance processes and leadership at all levels in the school, from starting at the children all the way through to staff. So we prioritised ESN immediately, and we had support from colleagues within East Ayrshire, particularly the East Ayrshire support team, who I would really like to commend in their support to the school at that time. We implemented quality assurance processes pretty quickly as well, and that included observation of learning in classes,